Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our Thursday live talk on Facebook here. My name is Greg Jamiel, and I think we're live right now. I'm hoping that we're live. Hopefully, we'll see some comments popping in here in a second to make sure that you can see me and hear me okay. Let's see. All right, great. We're live. I can see you on there. So, I first want to go over a couple of housekeeping items that I need to talk about regarding Phil. So, as we know, Phil is doing his Facebook Live talks every other week, which is why he's not on this week because he was just on last week. So, I decided in between those weeks to hop on and share some teachings with you too. So, I know some people wanted to see him this week, but he'll be on next week, so you can catch him then at that time. If you're looking to book a session with Phil, he is booked up until March, so just keep that in mind. Book something early. You know, if you're thinking about it, book it now because his schedule fills up pretty far in advance, and so you can get in as early as you can right now, which is March. So book your session now if you're wanting to do that. If you're wanting to book a session with me, you can go to my website, gregoryjamiel.com, and I'll put that in the post here afterwards and you can book with me. My schedule is far more open, so I can work with you much sooner than March. So why don't we get that out of the way? We will begin our talk here. Grab a little sip of water. It's been a very busy day running around, so I'm excited to get into this conversation and share some knowledge and wisdom with you guys. You'll notice behind me, I've brought a little altar out for my mom and dad. This is um, my dad here and my mom, who have both passed on. You can kind of see them there. And so I have a little altar set up for them on my main altar. And I'm going to go over this in a little bit, ways that you can celebrate and honor your ancestors. And so we'll talk a little bit about that altar here when that time comes. Now, we are coming upon an amazingly powerful weekend. And, you know, as 2020 goes, it's like this weekend not only has Halloween, the Day of the Dead, and we also have a full moon on Halloween. And I read something somewhere that the last time we had a full moon, a blue moon, on Halloween was in 1944 or something like that, like a long time ago. So it's pretty amazing. And I expect nothing less from all of the crazy things that have come out in 2020. So this weekend we will have a powerful full moon on Halloween night, a blue moon, and then we will move right into the Day of the Dead. And so I wanted to share a little bit of history about these weekends and this weekend in particular, and the events that are leading up to this coming Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, Halloween, and then the Day of the Dead, both of those. This whole weekend is a prime opportunity for you. They say, you know, the veil is thin over this Halloween weekend. That veil between the living world and the world of the people who have passed on is very thin this time of year, and especially at this weekend, these next couple of days. So it is a prime time to set your intentions and try to reach out and connect with your loved ones and those ancestors and to remember them in a really positive, uplifted way. This time of year, the energy that's going around is not one of mourning, it's one of celebration and honoring your ancestors and remembering them and really keeping their spirit alive. If you've ever seen the movie Coco, it is fantastic. I highly recommend it. You're probably going to cry because I cry every time I watch it. But it is absolutely beautiful, and it's all focused on the Day of the Dead and remembering and honoring our ancestors. And so that's a beautiful way to kind of learn a little bit more about that this weekend. I want to talk about the origins of Halloween. So many of the holidays that we celebrate and recognize throughout the year have started with earth based traditions or pagan holidays, things like that. Halloween began with the Celts over in Ireland. And so it was the end of the harvest season, the end of their growing season. And they would build big bonfires and wear masks to scare away the evil spirits that came over the winter. And over the years, that type of belief system and that practice that happened kind of morphed into Halloween. And then when the religious aspect came along to it, we also have the All Saints and All Souls Days. So All Saints Days is on November 1st, and All Souls Day is on November 2nd. All Saints Days is a day that people can recognize and honor and celebrate all the saints that have helped them in their life and that have been around in the world. And they make offerings to these saints. They say prayers to them. They really celebrate those saints that way. The next day, I think it has a very specific name. Um, so it's called Pope. So I wrote down here in the early 8th century, Pope Gregory, you know, Gregory the Third designated November 1st as All Saints' Day, which incorporated some of the traditions of Samhain, which is that Celtic tradition of the bonfires and the masks. The evening before it was called All Hallows Eve, which eventually became known as Halloween. And then the day after it became the All Souls Day. And it was called the commemoration of all the faithful departed, or also known as the Day of the Dead, depending on where you are. Mexico is the origins, the birthplace of the Day of the Dead. Now, that is also on November 1st and 2nd as well. And that's the time when people build huge altars to remember their family. And they'll cover them with foods and drinks that they loved and photographs and flowers, beautiful flowers. And so people go and they have these altars in their homes and also out in nature too, out in cemeteries and out in big parks. And there are a lot of festivities around it. Again, that focuses on remembering our ancestors in a really positive, happy light, instead of the traditional mourning, the sad thing that we have there. So I want to talk about some of the ways that we interact with these things that are going on over this weekend. Death is a very traumatic and intense emotional experience. And when we lose a loved one, we suffer. I mean, we really experience heartbreak, and it's traumatic and it's painful. And so a lot of people in our culture do not like to talk about death. And that builds a certain air around the experience of death. It builds a sense of fear around it almost. The things that we don't understand, we fear. The things that we don't talk about, we fear. And so it's important for us, in my opinion, to talk about death. Death is a massive part of life. My mom, who I showed you that picture of there, she died when I was really young. I was in my 20s. I think I was 22. And she was 42. And she just went to sleep and didn't wake up. And so that was really the first experience I had with death. And to be honest with you, I really had not many people to turn to, because no one really, there's no guidebook on how to go through death or how to actually mourn, how to actually grieve, especially from a child to a parent. At that time, at that age, let me say this, I didn't have the tools, or I wasn't aware of anything that could help me. And so it was a challenge to try to talk to people about this, because it's emotional and it's hard. And so people avoid that talk. What I'm hoping that we can do is reframe our own mindset around death and dying. That is such a process of life. It makes our life more precious. And from that experience I just shared about my mom, it really changed who I was as a person, because from that point on, I look at everything at that standpoint of my mom. My mom was the age I am now. And I look at it and say, if I die today, would I regret whatever, ... Would I regret taking that trip? Or would I regret, hanging out with my friends, or staying out a little bit later than I should, or going to that party, or whatever it is. And so I try to live my life in a way that I look at that endpoint, and it really allows me to kind of step up and realize that there is no wasting time in our life right now. Nothing is promised to us. Nothing is given forever. And as tragic and traumatic as death is, it is another part of life. I mean, you can't have life without death. And in my mind, the way that I live and the way that I work with these ceremonial ways, it's like I'm living this prayer, right? I'm on this path that I have, this vision for my life. I'm in this ceremony. And when I die, it's like that next ceremony will begin, whatever that is. I don't know what it is, but I look at it in a beautiful way. I know that I'm going to see my mom and dad over there, and other family members and loved ones who have passed on. And so it makes me feel a little bit better. It makes me feel like death is not as heavy as I thought it was when I was a younger kid. So hopefully that kind of may help you get a little bit of a different perspective around death and dying, and how you can weave that into your life to really take advantage of this life that we have, this gift that we have. So, getting back to honoring these loved ones, I'm going to go over a list here, and then I see already a lot of people writing in comments here. I'm going to go through and answer your questions. I want to talk about a few ways, just 5 ways that you can remember and honor your ancestors, especially over this weekend. The first one is really simple, remembering them, right? So ask your elders, ask your grandparents and other family members about your elders, about these other people who have passed on. Ask them to tell stories. When people start remembering these loved ones who have passed on and they share stories about them, it brings that person's spirit back to life. It kind of fills the room with them. There's also a saying too that we die 3 deaths. The first one is our physical death when our body dies. The second death is when people stop talking about us, when they stop remembering us in our life. And the third death is when that last person who knew us on earth passes away. And so those are, from what I've heard, the 3 different deaths that we experience as a people. So telling stories and keeping the memory of your loved ones alive is a profound thing to do to help not only teach the younger generations about their ancestors, but also to honor and keep the spirit of that person alive. Another thing that you can do is call on them for support. I do a lot of meditation and I teach people how to meditate, especially with their ancestors. And so meditation is a fantastic way to kind of close your eyes, get grounded, and really reach out to your ancestors. Now, there's certain thing that I want to share. When we look at ourselves in the mirror, we have certain characteristics of our ancestors, of our parents and whatever. I have brown hair, I have green eyes, I'm a certain height, I have a certain skin tone. These are all physical things that have been passed down from my parents' DNA into my own. But there's more that's passed on to us. What else is passed on to us is the tenacity and the courage and the creativity that our ancestors had. Now, my dad's family was in Lebanon, they're Lebanese, and so they had to flee Lebanon and come to the United States. And so I can only imagine the courage that it took for them to make that decision to leave Lebanon at the time they did, travel across the world, across the ocean, and arrive in a new country that they were unfamiliar with. They went in through Ellis Island, they moved to Rhode Island, and that's where I was born, a few generations later. But those skills and the characteristics of their personality that they had are also passed down to me. Their tenacity, their bravery and courage. These things run through my blood. My blood was made for their blood. That DNA is the same. That formula for who I am is so much more than just my hair and eye color. It's also parts of my character. And so by meditating and thinking a little bit about who you are, maybe like an artistic talent. I know some people are really good with music. Some people are really good with the arts. And I always hear the parent, I'm an artist. And so I'd hear my parents say, I don't know where he gets it from. He got it from someone. It's someone in my family line was an artist. And I actually Googled it to see, what Jamiel down the line was an artist. And I did find a famous artist way back in the day. His name was Caesar. So that was kind of cool to see that. But that's another way to honor your ancestors, is to really look at who you are and look at where you came from and how you can see those similarities with yourself and with the people who came before you. Another way that you can work with this, dedicate a special tool to work with them. So I have a lot of drums, and you can see a drum behind me, and crystals and fans, and I have all these really cool things that I absolutely love. I have a few things that I only keep for myself, and that is to work with my ancestral lineage. So possibly it's a drum that I may have built from hand, or a rattle, or a feather that I found out in the nature. Maybe I take that and just make a little fan that is just for me when I'm meditating to my ancestors. And what I would love to show you, I have this big giant picture of my grandmother. It's in our living room. It's huge. It's probably 3.5 feet by 2.5 feet, this old painting. And I really, every time I walk by it, I say, "Hey, Graham, what's up, Graham?" And so I try to really honor her and remember her. So having those pictures of our ancestors up and having a special tool, maybe I use that smudging tool, the feather that I have or the drum that I have, where whenever I use it, I'm focusing solely on that intention of connecting with my ancestors. The last thing I want to share today is about building an altar. Now, this is the biggest one, which is why I saved it for last. And it's something that a lot of us have in our houses, and you may not even consider it an altar. You may think of it just a gathering of photos of your ancestors. And so, what I want to share today is a few different ways that you can make your altar kind of come to life, not only with things from your ancestors, but also with things from your own interests and your own personality. So, like I said before, I have my photo here of my mom and my dad. And on my altar, I also have my dad, loved chess, and so we have these old chess pieces that he got from the Philippines. He was in the Navy, and so these are his old chess pieces. And so I keep just the kings and queens out in my altar too, because that reminds me of my dad and my mom. These two, it kind of represents my mom and my dad in my own mind. My mom, we grew up in Rhode Island on the ocean. We love going to the beach. And so I found on one of my travels this old petrified sand dollar. And so I put this on my altar. My mom has never seen this. She's never touched this, but it reminds me of my mom. And so I have this on my altar right by her picture. And then the third thing that I think is really cool. So I love the Day of the Dead. I think it's a fantastic way to honor our loved ones. I love celebrating my ancestors. And so I have Day of the Dead, memorabilia all over my house, all over my room. And I kind of brought a few pieces of it today to share with you. But this is kind of cool. My dad used to collect silver. And so I found this really cool silver piece with a Day of the Dead, skull on it. But when I see this, it reminds me of my dad because of the silver, and it reminds me of my interest, which is the Day of the Dead, and honoring them in the Day of the Dead skull. And so for me, that goes on my altar too. And then adding on to this, of course, is the elements. So the earth, the air, the water, the fire. Typically, when we're working, honoring our ancestors, we work with the fire. And I have a really good friend from Portland who has been making these candles, and I just happened to see that he made a line for the Day of the Dead, and I was like, okay, I gotta have these things. So I ordered both of them just to try them out, and they are fantastic. And so he's got Fingerprint & Co. is his website, and this is one of them here. Let me turn it that way for you. It just smells amazing, and you can see Fingerprints & Co. And so I always have candles around my altar, and this just kind of made it a little bit more special because it is the Day of the Dead. And I talked to him about these talks that I do, and he said, oh yeah, he said, well, you can, tell him we'll give him a discount or something. So I'm going to show you here. If you do want to get one of those candles, you can go to the website and use the gift code Ancestors. And I think he said there's like a 10% discount or something like that. So if you're interested, that would be a great thing to look at. He has a few different scents too. For these different Day of the Dead candles. So again, building your altar, using photographs that you have, using the different chess pieces from my dad, using the shell that reminds me of my mom. So putting all these things together that remind me of my family, it really makes my altar more unique and more special, and kind of when I look at it, I don't only see my parents, I feel my parents, because there are emotional attachments to that sand dollar. I mean, I have stories of walking on the beach with my mom and collecting sand dollars. So when I saw that petrified version of one, I said, yep, that's got to go on my altar. So let me grab a quick little sip of water. So let me look through here. It looks like we have a bunch of questions. So I'm going to scroll through real quick. Charlotte, yes, you can absolutely share this video in your group. And Maria, yes, I will definitely get in touch with you about doing sessions with you for sure. Do you guys have any questions about the ancestral connection here? There's some other things that I really kind of want to touch on. There's a beautiful thing to think about when you think about your voice, right? Again, I talked about our eye color and our hair color and the tenacity of the characteristics of our family members. There's also a final gift. When we were born, my teacher tells me that we were given a final gift from our parents, and it's our voice. It's the tone of our voice. That voice is the combination of my mom's voice, my dad's voice. And so, that right there, when I speak, the voice that you're hearing right now is the combination of my mother and father's voice. To me, that is so special because both of my parents have passed on, and I can, whenever I speak in the back of my mind, I always say, oh, kind of every now and then I catch a little glimpse of my mom and dad from that. Just hearing my own voice myself, I kind of go, they're not gone. They're not fully gone. Their spirit is still alive here. So that's just a little something extra for you too. Jim says Phil took the heartache out of death for me. I now understand more. It makes me feel better. That's great, Jim. Yeah, death is a traumatic experience, and I'm not negating that at all. I think, there are different phases of grief and mourning, and when you are first experiencing a death, you need to be in it. You need to mourn and you need to feel it. And then as time goes by, it's a little bit easier for you to celebrate that person's memory without crumbling into a bunch of tears. Even today, talking about these guys here, my parents, it's like the emotions come up. They're right under the surface, and I think those emotions will always be under the surface when I talk about my mom and dad. Matt here, do you believe that haunted places will be quite strong with spirits and ghosts? So Matt, that's a fantastic question. Yes, over this weekend, again, they say, for lack of a better term, the veil is thin, right? And so it's not that there will be more hauntings, it's just that spirits from the other side will be able to express themselves a little bit easier over this weekend. And again, you have the addition to the full moon on Saturday night too. So there are lots of energies at play. The full moon, remember, it kind of tugs on us at an emotional level. We are comprised mainly of water. And this weekend I went to the Oregon coast, which I haven't been to in a long time. And in, maybe around 10 or 11 o'clock at night, the tide was out, and me and my friends walked way far out. The water was really far out there. And I just kind of stood there for a minute, and I got a little spooked because I was like, okay, we're way far out. And like 3 hours ago, there were waves crashing right where we're standing. And so it was kind of cool and kind of spooky too. But yes, that moon, that full moon energy is something that really kind of helps uplift that doorway between the two worlds. And I actually do a ceremony. You guys, I'm sure, as some of you always kind of bust my chops about it, but I have my moon water here, right? I've got my cup, my big mason jar of water. Before I go to bed, I fill the cup up, and then I've got all these windows here. So I put it in the window, and the moon crosses by. And so at night, I ask that moon, the energy of the moon, to kind of bless up this water a little bit and put some really good intentions and power in it, And then when I wake up in the morning, I take a drink of it, and all throughout the day, I kind of drink my water here that has been, for lack of a better term, blessed by the moon, or at least affected by the moon's energy. So when I drink it, I feel like it's uplifting anything inside of me that may be toxic or just needs to move, maybe a little stagnant. So it's a cool thing to do this weekend on Saturday night. Maybe put a cup of water outside in the moonlight and put some intentions behind that you want to have that water be really wonderful medicine for your body when you drink it the next morning. So Matt, yes, lots of energy going around this weekend. I don't want to say ghosts and haunting, but lots of energy will be able to be seen, felt, and heard for a lot of people. Let's see. Hello for everyone here. Lots of hellos coming in. So there's a lot of let's see here. Mallory just wrote in here. My mother and daughter were very, very close. She passed in April. My daughter randomly says my mother is here or can smell her. I feel the smell of her left in our home, but we randomly, mostly my daughter, tells me she smells her. Is this her visiting? So yes, there are definitely different things that would let you know that there is an entity or a spirit or someone that you loved who's coming back around. One of them, a main one, is a scent. You may pick up a smell, and it may be a strange smell. And I'll tell you, for my mom, The thing that I did for her on Mother's Day, we had a big lilac tree outside of our house, and we had roses. So every Mother's Day, I'd go outside and I'd cut a bunch of lilacs and I'd put some roses in it and stick it in the dining room. So now, whenever I smell lilacs that I consciously smell, I kind of think of my mom. But there have been a few times, Mallory, where lilac season is long gone, and I catch a whiff of a lilac, and I know that's something to do with my mom. I know there's something there about her for sure coming through. So yes, smells are big emotional triggers, and keys at the other side are very near. Other signs like that, little chills in the back of your neck. Sometimes you're just sitting there and you get a chill or you feel a cool breeze. Definitely something maybe moving around you. Sam, if I ask my relatives to visit in a dream but they don't, does that mean that they don't want to visit? Is it still okay to talk to them? Sam, that's a fantastic question. And by no means does that mean that they do not want to visit you. I'll tell you right now, all of our ancestors are there for us all the time. Here's the caveat. We are asking, so none of us truly know what happens on the other side. Nobody does. They're not even Phil, okay? He has his perspective, but nobody knows 100% sure. What I'm getting at here is there is a language on that side that we are trying to understand. And every so often, those lines cross over where we're able to smell the lilacs or we're able to hear a voice or whatever. I am sure, Sam, that I think it was your mom, you said, a relative. So I'm sure your relatives are coming to you, but it would almost be like an English person listening to someone speak French when they don't know French. The language is just not there for us to understand. So even though you may not have remembered that they came to visit or seen them in your dream or heard them, that does not mean that they have not come and that they are abandoning you. That does not mean that at all. It just means that you are not understanding the language that they're communicating in to reach you. So you have to give it time and you have to practice and you have to put that effort in. And when you set intentions, you may ask your relatives or ancestors, hey, come to me in a way that I can understand. Because maybe it's my dream. Maybe I'm more of a visual person. Come to me in my dreams and let me see a vision of you. Maybe someone else may say, bring a scent through that I know is you, something that will remind me of you. Maybe other people are more auditory and they say, let me hear your voice. I want to hear you say something. And then maybe some other people are more tactile. I want to feel you touch me somehow, touch my belly or my heart or something like that. And so, Sam, they can come many different ways. It's up to us to try to find that language that allows that crossover between the other side and our side. Carmen, are there any good meditations you can recommend for this weekend to try to connect with loved ones? Carmen, that's a great one. I am absolutely trying to make one this weekend for you. My goal is to have it done tomorrow afternoon, and I'll put it on this Phil's page and on our private Facebook group, a healing community with Greg Jamiel. So if you're in that group, I'll share that guided meditation that way. I got a new drum that was gifted to me, which I'm going to be sharing a little bit more about in the future. The power of drumming and how that can help shift you into a trance-like state, a shamanic state, where you can connect with the other side a little bit more easily. But drumming on a camera like this does not go through. It doesn't work. So I'm going to make a recording of my drum and then record the audio to go with it and just share an audio guided meditation for you. So that'll be coming, I'm really hoping, tomorrow before the afternoon. Diane says, I often smell a cigar, but I don't remember anyone who smoked one. So, Diane, that's a good question. And it may not be cigar. It may be tobacco, or it may be another scent that is reminding you of something. It may be sometimes that cigar smell and even a tobacco smell can also smell like an earth smell. So maybe think too, is it someone who was a gardener or a farmer? Something like that. That may be another option for you. Beth asks, when someone dead pops into our head, does that mean they are by us? Beth, it may be that. I think we're thinking in the human realm here of just seeing the physicality of people and things, and what we need to shift our mindset is to open up to that divine world, which again acts in a way that none of us know about 100%. Again, Phil can say he sees full-on people like he sees you and I. Other people, when I'm in ceremony, I can see and feel spirits that are not presenting themselves in the physical world like I am, but in more of an emotional and energetic state. And so, yeah, it's not necessarily that they're right behind you at that point, but for them to pop into your mind, there is a reason that they're popping into your mind. And so I would look more at that too. Maybe think about them a little. Maybe light a candle for them and have their picture out and remember them. Diane says, oh, I'm sorry, I just answered that one there. Beth, oh, I just answered that one too. All right, we need some help over here. It's tough to do it by myself. Diane Marie says, Isaac would know what goes on, and I am sure he's told. Yep, okay, so we got that. Heidi says, I love drumming and was going to ask you about them. So, Heidi, yes, that's a fantastic question. So, again, I've got the one right behind me here. I've got about 6 in my bedroom here. I love drumming. And when I was in Portland, I used to lead drum circles. And when you drum, there is a heartbeat attached to that drum. So, well, I'll just show you this drum right here. So this is a drum that was recently gifted to me from a good friend over in Berlin. And it actually just came through a couple of days ago. So I am really excited to work with this. And he is a master craftsman. This is the drum here. And you can see on the back, look at the handle and the thread work on this. I mean, it is absolutely gorgeous. And so I do have a plan that I will be sharing a little bit more about drumming and about the power of drumming. And I'm going to actually have him come on so that he can tell us a little bit more about this. But when you drum, you kind of create this this heartbeat, and the animal hide that you're drumming with, actually, they say the spirit comes back to life when you're working with a drum. So this is a buffalo drum. So when I play it, that buffalo spirit, the energy of this actual buffalo that this hide is from, comes back to life. And so it helps us in journeying, it helps us in meditation, it helps us connect to the natural world. And drumming is a really powerful, profound practice to do, either doing it by yourself or even listening to maybe a drum beat that is set like a heartbeat, like that boom, 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 boom. If you play that, you can actually kind of sit and meditate. And even if you have headphones on, it's like it helps you align your spirit and your heartbeat with that spirit and heartbeat of the earth. And together, amazing things can happen. So I hope that works with you there. It looks like we are out of time right now. And so I want to thank you guys for joining us. I hope that you're able to have a fantastic weekend this weekend, set some beautiful intentions to connect with your ancestors. And again, don't forget that full moon on Saturday night. I really appreciate you joining us, and Phil will be back next week, and then we'll be on together a few weeks after that. Have a fantastic rest of your night. And if you'd like to book a session with me, you can go to GregoryJamiel.com, where I teach people how to connect with the other side, how to connect with their loved ones, their guides, and also to get more grounded. So when you do work with Phil, you're in a much more receptive state. And again, you can find more info at GregoryJamiel.com. Thank you guys so much, and have a great rest of your night.